Hi, my name is Gayle, and today I'm going to show you how to do downward facing dog so that it feels really good, and hopefully you'll end up loving downward facing dog if you don't love it already. Downward facing dog is one of those foundational poses that if you do any type of vinyasa or flow class, you're going to be doing it several times during the practice. If done correctly, it's really therapeutic because it strengthens your hands and wrists, shoulders, lengthens out the whole back, the spine, lengthens your hamstrings, can open your calves, open the Achilles tendon right at the base of the calves, and even stretch out the soles of your feet. When it's done incorrectly, that's when people start getting wrist problems. Maybe they develop more tightness and pinching in their neck, and even though they know it's supposed to feel good, it doesn't really feel that good. So just for a quick look, for some of you that may not have ever done downward facing dog. Downward dog is this pose. So you can see that my back is nice and long. I'm really stretching my hamstrings. I've got a lift in the armpits, and there's a lot of integration here. Okay, so I'm going to break down some things that you can do to make downward dog feel really good. So starting with the wrists, we want to stretch out the fingers. So take one hand and place it on the other hand, and as you pull the fingers back, press forward through these knuckles of the fingers. So you feel it getting into the fingers and not the wrist. So notice the wrist is flat, and just pulling the fingers back, pressing these knuckles forward. Then to get into the wrist, now we're going to bring the wrist at a 90-degree angle, and we're going to, again, we're going to push forward with the heel of the hand and stretch the fingers back. This is a good way to get a nice stretch in the wrist, the inside of the wrist. Then to stretch the outer wrist, we're going to take our hands into a fist, bring the knuckles together, place the thumbs right over the index finger, and then keeping the elbows bent, bring your hands to the floor. It might even be easier to come onto your knees. Bring your hands to the floor and begin to straighten your arms. So for a lot of you, you're going to be surprised just how much tightness you might feel along here. And for some of you, the fingers are going to want to just pop open, and you'll still get a stretch. So you can bend the elbows and straighten out again, bend and straighten. So then you can shake out the hands, do some figure eights. You can even squeeze just above the wrist and kind of pull forward. You squeeze and pull forward. And all this can release tension in your forearms and in your hands. So the next thing we want to focus on is the shoulders, the placement of the shoulders. So if you stretch your arms up and lift up through the fingertips, you're going to feel your shoulders pull off the back. And this is when the shoulders aren't integrated. So this is going to be nice for a stretch, but it's not what we want when we're in downward facing dog. So if you actually, from the back, pull the shoulders down and then stretch up. So we're actually flossing or gliding the shoulders up and down. So notice my body is staying still, but it's just the shoulders that are moving. So from the back, just to show you what it looks like, you can see how when the shoulders are pulled down, then it's activating these muscles here, the lats, so they can be nice and strong. And you can tap into your back muscles when you're in downward facing dog. So we want to do this flossing in 3 directions. So straight up and down, and then at a 45-degree angle, which is how you're going to be in your down dog. And then just straight forward from your shoulders. And this is going to be useful for a lot of different poses. This will also help to build some flexibility and mobility and strength in your shoulders. So that's for the hands and the shoulders. And then to get into the core, we're going to do cat-cow. So you come into a tabletop position, and with your hands nice and firm and strong, you want the fingers spread evenly. You want the wrist creases here parallel to the front edge of your mat. And you want the weight more in the fingertips and these middle knuckles here so that you could easily lift the heels of the hands up. Because we actually have a little arch in the heel of our hand, and when that gets smashed in down dog, that's when you start having wrist problems. So I don't know if you can see it, it's just a little arch right here. So you come down into tabletop, place your hands And then just begin to let the spot between the shoulder blades of the back begin to relax and soften. So I'm not bending my elbows, but my chest and my belly is getting closer to the floor. And then I'm going to inhale, lift the head, and the tailbone is lifting up a lot. And then exhale, pull the belly to the spine and around. Really let the neck relax. And using your breath, let the breath lead the way, so you inhale up and exhale, ground. As you inhale, draw the chest forward, really lifting that tailbone up. And as you exhale, really press up through your back, nice and rounded. So when you're in down dog, you can do some regulating just with this pelvic action of the tailbone. Now we're going to work on a couple different ways of getting into down dog. So the first way is to walk your knees back, tuck your toes, sit back on your heels for like a modified child's pose. And then begin to grip your hands into the floor. Lift the wrists up nice and strong. Lift the elbows up and the armpits up. Then press your hands down into the floor and away from your body. If your arms are activated strong enough, then you'll be able to lift your hips straight up. So what we're not looking for is to come forward, lift up, and go back. Usually that gets people to about here. And they're not really stretching back. So if you can start in child's pose, stretched way back, activate the arms and lift the arms. Keep the gaze forward towards your hands and just lift the hips straight up. So to start off with, you want to bend the knees, because some of you at this point are going to have rounded backs like this. And that's not what we really want. And if you're stretching too far away, your shoulders aren't integrated. So let your chest come forward. Bend your knees so you can get a little arch in your back. And then keeping this action of the arms lifting, the tailbone lifting, begin to press your thighs back. Okay, at some point for those of you with really tight hamstrings, you're going to feel your back start to round. So just bend your knees and stay there. So if you can get your thighs back a little bit more, do that. Then begin to press your heels to the floor from your bent knees, or from the knees. And keep the belly lifting and begin to scoop the tailbone down. And that's going to bring some weight into your heels and also take some weight away from your hands. So ideally, even here, you can lift the heels and the hands up. So the thing that's so great about downward facing dog is it activates the bladder meridian, which is the longest channel in the body. And that runs from the middle of our inner eye all the way up over the head, down the back of the hamstrings, and ends at the pinky toes. And this bladder meridian is a very yang, has yang energy, so it's the physical body. It regulates the sympathetic nervous system, which is the fight or flight response, and it also regulates the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the rest and relaxation responses. So when we do downward facing dog, it can help us with insomnia, with anxiety, with irritable bowel syndrome, with asthma, and a host of other things. So that should be some good motivation for you to really start to love your downward facing dog. So another way of coming in, of working on down dog, is what we call puppy dog. So you want to actually grip the edges of your mat, walk your knees back, stretch back, lift your hips up, and you can bring your feet really wide. And this will be really helpful if your hamstrings are tight. But gripping the mat, you've got your arms more naturally engaged. So let your chest come forward, and then with bent knees, stretch way back. Make sure you have this. It's going to be easier to arch your low back here when you're in this with the feet nice and wide. And then the same actions, okay? So we're going to keep the tailbones lifting as we press the thighs back. If the back over rounds, then you just stay to that point. You find that point where you can, where the low back has just a mild little curve where it's kind of straightish. Then begin to press the thighs back, push the heels down, and then scoop the tailbone. So when you scoop the tailbone, you should feel really grounded in your legs. And then you could walk the feet more normal distance or stay where you are. And come on down. So that's method number 2. The last one I'm going to go over to think about that'll really help with the arm position is come into our down dog. Okay, and then imagine that you have a big beach ball in between your elbows. And you're going to bend the elbows out to the side. And then you're going to bring the elbows down and in like you want to grab that beach ball. So the elbows scoop down and in, and then you lift it up. And that's going to set your arms to be nice and strong in a really good position. And then you can do everything we've been doing with the legs. So tailbone lifts up, thighs press back, tailbone roots, and you want to find a nice even balance between your arms and legs. Feel a nice long spine. And if you practice that way, if you continue to do downward facing dog, you're going to really end up loving it. So hope you enjoyed this video. I'm going to be doing a lot more videos, so please stay tuned. Gayle, Jann Yoga, and I'll see you again. Bye.